Lights, camera, abomination. Welcome back to Sound the Siren. I'm Xavier.
And I'm Dylan. Welcome back to the second episode of the new series, The Week That Was. Today we'll discuss last week, round three, as well as our tips for week four this week. We're recording on the Sunday, a bit late, but before we get into the tips, we have a new category. We're going to select our favourite game of all time. It's been an interesting week in the footy world, to say the least. Last Saturday, we received the news of Conor McKenna, and then there were rumours of it being a false positive. But in the end, we still have footy, and I know it's curing our boredom.
Yeah. Just on the Conor McKenna situation, Dylan, how did you view that? What were your thoughts on the whole situation?
I didn't think we were going to have footy, to be honest. I was surprised when they kept it going, but after they found out he'd only been close to one other player,
Mm.
yeah, it wasn't too bad. So they just took a week off, and then we'll get into the game last night. I know you're happy about that.
I thought we would have footy, but I thought that maybe Essendon would miss a few more players than they did. I think that only James Stewart and Conor McKenna were the players that missed because of the virus, but I thought maybe their whole defence would miss. I knew that we were going to keep playing because I think the AFL said in their press conference before the game before the season restarted that they were going to play even if a player got the virus. Your all-time game, Dylan? What game did you have?
So my all-time game, I may be a bit biased here. I was 6 years old and I arrived at Port Fairy on a holiday, and it was the last quarter of St Kilda Geelong in 2009. Unbelievable last quarter, tied with about a minute and a half left, and then big Michael Gardner just took a huge specky kick to the goal and then saved us a minute after by taking another pack mark. A standout game for him, really. And then he kind of went unnoticed a bit after that, but unbelievable game, great intensity, and two teams that were 13 and 0.
My all-time game I've got two selections actually, but for all-time was just before I was born, the 1999 prelim, Carlton versus Essendon. I think that was a ridiculous comeback by the Blues and did well to win that one, even though we lost the following week, but
Razor
did well
Brown.
to get there. Kuta Feedy's absolutely destroyed in the last quarter, but if it was a game that I went to, I can't remember what year it was, but there was a Carlton GWS game a few years ago. Carlton won by 1 point.
Yeah.
And the last 6 minutes of play was right in front of where I was sitting at the game. So that was really good and really stressful as well.
Now, we're going to move on to the week three tips. And before we start, I have to apologise to a few fan bases here. I've got to apologise to the Western Bulldogs. I've got to apologise to Hawthorn. And I've got to apologise to Sydney as well. You know, I kind of not roasted them, but I wasn't keen on them. And they just showed me that I was completely wrong.
Yeah, I think the Bulldogs was the worst one. You said that one wasn't going to be close and that they were going to lose by 10 goals, but ended up winning. So
Yeah, very regretful, and I didn't tip them this week, so we'll get into that as well. But the first game, I tipped the Tigers, as I mentioned. They ended out losing by 32 points. Your reaction to that game?
well, I'd love to say that I thought Hawthorn was going to win the whole time, and I did. Um, they had some good ins. Uh, I think from the very first bounce, they were the better team, and their pressure was immense. They kicked the ball very well. Jonathan Patton was big in the first quarter. Jager O'Meara looked like he'd been playing all year. Just a very good game from Hawthorn.
Yeah, Jager O'Meara, standout performance. His presence was made. The Friday night game. Now, here's where, here's where I gotta take it in. The Bulldogs and the Giants. I tipped the Giants, and they ended out losing by 4 goals at Marvel Stadium.
Mm.
I think Jonathan Pally really proved me wrong, and I know that you'd love that.
Yeah, I think the Bond wasn't his best game statistic-wise, but the context of a win for his game was very big, and he probably still got a vote despite not getting the ball as often as perhaps he'd like. I think it was pretty bad from GWS that they all got on him from the very start of the game. It looked like they were a bit too focused on him rather than the game at hand, and I think it probably cost them at the end. And I think the Bonds goal at the very end, it perhaps didn't win them the game, but it was probably sealed them the game, and it was fitting that he had the ball hanging off him because it was the same for the whole game. So,
And that halftime brawl, tempers flaring everywhere. Really just made them turn up even more. That rivalry since 2016 prelim, just kept it. The next game on the Saturday afternoon, where I thought the footy would be halted for a couple of weeks, North Melbourne, Sydney.
Sydney got the win there by 11 points. I had Sydney winning that one. I tipped them. At the time, I said I don't think North Melbourne's list was as good as some people say, and I sort of stand by that. Sydney won again, and I think North Melbourne's probably going to lose again this week. But they played all right, kept it pretty close. And your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought North were still going to win. I think it was close up until about half time, and then Sydney kicked away. Good game, though, from start to finish. They came at the end, couldn't get there. It was close. It was about 2 goals, 2 minutes to go. I thought they had a little chance, little glimmer of hope, but Swans took it out in the end. The next game, I was thoroughly disappointed. The Saints absolutely killed by the Pies.
Tipped Collingwood as well. I thought it would be closer than it was. I think it was a big game for St Kilda. They really got the chance to show where they sit amongst all the AFL teams, whether they're still in that middle block or if they can push to being a more elite team this year. But Collingwood beat them. I think they had another big test this week, and they proved that they were better than perhaps they performed last week, which was good for them. But
it's Stadium for sure. Marvel Stadium are a different side, but the MCG we tend to have our struggles. The next game, Carlton Geelong. I know you would have been on the edge of your seat. I was.
I think this one, obviously, my game of the week as a Carlton supporter. It's not very often we get to see a win, or let alone two. But we came out from the start. We were very, very good in the first quarter, good in the second quarter again, good in the third quarter. We had a big lead at 3/4 time, and we tried our best to lose like we normally do, but we hung on just. Big performance from Eddie Betts in the last quarter. Levi Casbolt was very good. Sam Doherty looked like he hasn't missed a day of football in his career. Cripps big again. Just good team performance.
So many things went right in that last quarter. Gary Ablett missed an easy shot on goal.
Yeah.
Eddie Betts, that tackle.
The Doherty touch on the line. I think it was Simpson touch one off the boot.
And also, they almost tried to do what they almost did to Melbourne the week before. The next game, what I thought would be the game of the week, Brisbane West Coast, but Brisbane proving too strong.
Yeah, I had tipped Brisbane. I didn't actually watch this one. I got to watch a replay at some stage because I was busy watching the Carlton one, and I was at a friend's house, so could only watch one of the games. But glad I watched the right one.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't watch too much of it either. The Sunday game, the time spot obviously moved because of the Connor McKenna situation. Gold Coast proving too strong once again, and what a star Matty Rowell is.
Another very, very good performance from Matt Rowell. I think it was very poor from Adelaide, and I think they had a lot of questions to answer all week, and then they didn't answer them in the game and only raised more. A horrible performance. They lost by 53, I think it was.
Yeah.
Just not good at all. But Matt Rowell, building into some sort of superstar he is.
Absolutely.
Same as Ben King, played a very good game in that one. But I think the Sportsbet has moved Matt Rowell to third on the Brownlow odds. And I think that's probably a bit too high still, but I think there's going to be serious consideration. And if the season ended right now, he'd have to be an All-Australian at the moment and maybe even the Brownlow medalist. But
he could be. If he keeps it up, his consistency so far, he's 4 rounds, absolutely killed it in every game. And then to finish off the round, we had Freo Port, a good game up until halftime, and then Port just took the cherries on top. Charlie Dixon really proving himself this season.
Charlie Dixon had a big week this week.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. How did he play in this one?
I think he had 2 or 3 goals. It was a wet game.
Hit 2 goals too.
Yeah, so he's getting up there once again. He could be the Coleman medalist.
maybe. I think him and Levi Casbolt are the only key forwards in the top 5 or 6. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I know a lot of the ones that most people predicted to be up there aren't, in like Lynch, Rewalt, Franklin, Kennedy, Ben Brown, all those people. They're not having as good a year as some people had predicted. So I think that's pretty interesting. I had Port winning as well.
Yeah. So that does it for round 3. I had an absolute shocker. 4 out of 8, 50%. But this week, I've only got one game wrong so far. And guess who else it was? The Bulldogs. I tipped against them up at the SCG. I thought the Swans had it in them. You know, Parker, Mills, Lloyd played well. But Bontempelli and the young gun in Tim English really proven himself.
Yeah, I think Sydney was the favourite for this one. I tipped the Dogs, mainly and only because of the Bont. I thought he was going to have a massive one, and I was not wrong. He came the previous week not getting as many touches, but still having a big impact. To this week, getting a lot of touches and having a big impact. Hit the scoreboard, got clearances, contested possessions, got a lot of the ball, was damaging. Very, very good again. Definitely got the 3 votes. I think there was some interesting parts in this game. I thought it was pretty interesting that George Hewitt went to McRae at the start of the game instead of the Bont. And we all know that McRae gets a lot of the ball, but the Bont's probably one of the most damaging players in the league. So, but I did love to see the Luke Parker and Marcus Bontempelli, because Luke Parker is my favourite player outside of Carlton.
Yeah, when their midfield is on and consistent, it's a very scary side for all other teams in the league, really. The next game, I was the only one to tip in my tipping competition. The Giants managed to get away from the Pies in a very close game.
Yeah, I had the Giants as well, but I thought Collingwood would be close. But the Giants had some big ins this week with Green and Kelly. Whitfield obviously was injured the week before and played this one, and I think they're probably the 2 best. Them and Brisbane are probably the only 3 teams that haven't shown many mistakes this year and are looking very strong in every game. Just quickly on the Bulldogs as well, I thought the Bont turned it around. He had a 5-minute stretch. He took a contested mark against Heaney after Aaron Norton went off, and then he kicked 2 goals in that 5 minutes and really turned the game around. And then Callum Mills went to Bontempelli at the start of the 3rd, and I thought he slowed him down a lot, but obviously not that much.
Obviously not that much. 166 Supercoach. I know you'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
The next game, while we're on the Giants game, Josh Kelly played well. Pendle's absolute superstar, and I wish a speedy recovery for Jeremy Howe. He's done his PCL in a really awkward clash, knee straight to the side of the leg. It didn't look good. Let's just hope he gets out there as soon as possible, because he's very fun to watch.
Yeah, he was having a career best year as well, so I think that's a bit upsetting. And I know he was our pick or my pick for Mark of the Year as well. I'm not sure if you had him.
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Yeah, so that I don't think he'll be getting that this year, unfortunately, and not getting his All-Australian selection either with the injury. But makes it all the easier for Sam Doherty to get that pick.
Or Wiedering.
Both. Wiedering will take the key defensive spot, and Sam Doherty's going to take the small defense.
The next game, I don't think it reflects much on the year. Port Adelaide, West Coast, 89-41. But, West Coast, they're going home soon in a few weeks to full crowds. I think they'll be able to turn their season around. Obviously, up at Metricon, they're not going to play there very often. But Port Adelaide, still impressive. Charlie Dixon kicked a bag of 6. Josh Kennedy had 4 for the Eagles. But apart from that, not really much else to say for the Eagles.
I thought the game was pretty interesting because obviously before the year started, I thought West Coast was going to be very good. I tipped West Coast again last week and this week, mind you. Sorry. And they lost obviously by a lot. And Charlie Dixon was very good. I think Josh Kennedy was one of the only West Coast players that played well, managed to get his hands on the footy a bit. Best game of the year so far for him. But I think the bubbles obviously affected them, but obviously it's affected Port Adelaide quite positively. So it's hard to really gauge where they will sit this year. hopefully they can get their season going.
The next game I was extremely happy about. The mighty Saints took down the reigning premiers and the Tigers. And how good is Dan Butler? And as well as Dan Butler, I was going to say Rowan Marshall is taking up the role again of the ruckman because Paddy Ryder was a late out and he proved himself once again. So it'll be interesting to see what the mighty Saints can do if Ryder does come back into the team.
Yeah, I do like Marshall as the sole ruckman. Last year, he obviously played it all year and was very, very good. I thought Ryder was an interesting pickup for the Saints this year, as obviously he doesn't quite fit the age demographic that they're looking for, and it's just going to take away from Marshall being that sole ruckman. But yeah, Marshall was very good. The Saints were very good, and another one on the board for me. Both my teams won this week, which is good. If you don't know, I go for Carlton and anyone that's playing Richmond.
Nankervis as well. What a game he had. Once in a blue moon. Not a blue moon, but he was extremely impressive for that Tiger team. The 7:40 game, Gold Coast, Fremantle. An interesting clash. I thought it was going to be a bigger margin than it actually was. You know, it was tight, and then in the last quarter, Gold Coast kicked away.
I think, Dylan, we've skipped over the game of the week again.
No. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Don't worry, we're gonna get there.
Yeah, I had the Gold Coast again. Matt Rowell playing like an absolute superstar once again. 3 games in a row, he's probably going to get Brownlow votes in all of them. Yeah, big brawl at halftime as well. I saw.
Yeah,
I can't remember who it was. Matt Taberner, I think, pulled out Matt Rowell's jumper. I thought that was pretty funny, but I'm not sure Rowell liked it so much.
Before we get into the next game, because I know you're excited, I just want to say Jared Witt's probably the most underrated ruckman. There's a few of them there, but he's a star. And also wishing a speedy recovery for the 2-time Brownlow medalist, Nat Fyfe.
Yeah, for sure.
Now,
Did you see Rowell? He got tackled by Fyfe and he shrugged him off like he was a little 2-year-old. But
did he? I wasn't watching too much of that game. I was watching the next game, which is the mighty Blue Baggers and the Essendon squad. So I know you're happy about that. Who are you impressed with?
Last night, again, I was impressed with Casbolt, but I was very impressed with David Cunningham. He had like 30 touches or something, had 20-something at halftime, and very good game. Just missed the 2 goals, would have capped off his night, made it incredible. And Sam Doherty, again, he's got 180-something super coach. Just looks like he hasn't missed a day of football, racked up another 30-something touches, and he's got to be an All-Australian for mine this year.
There's definitely pros and cons for both sides out of this game. You know, obviously with the Blues, it's good to see Levi kicking straight, 3 goals, no behinds. It's good to see Doherty back with 32 possessions. But then you've also got Jack Silvani, who took a light jab to the ribs, but somehow might have broken it. So it would be interesting.
That came out today. I think it's come out that he's got a bruised lung and a fractured rib. So looked pretty like a pretty soft punch, but obviously it's done a fair bit of damage.
Yeah, not a good look for Zach Merritt. And then for the Bombers as well, you've got Jordan Ridley, an absolute young gun. He played extremely well. And then obviously the last kick of the game, Townsend. And if Liam Jones's head wasn't there, I think Essendon would have taken it away.
I think I was looking at the footage, and I think Pitney did touch it before Jones's head, but I think Jones got more of the ball. So
yeah, it's a tag.
He posted one on his Instagram just today. It said he got a brand new Siren tattoo right on his face. So that was pretty funny. Just quickly on the Zach Merritt one, do you think he will get suspended this week, or do you think he'll be right to play?
It's a big possibility. When I saw it, I just thought Silvani wasn't carrying on, but it just didn't look like a hard punch really. But once you've seen the results, it's something to have a deep look at. He'll go to the tribunal. He'll give his plea, but yeah, it's not a good look for Zach Merritt. He could get away with like a week or 2 on the sidelines.
I think at the time I thought maybe his fist had just gotten like underneath his ribs and maybe winded him, but I thought he'd come back out. And I think he tried to at one stage, but then he went down into the rooms and then got taken to hospital. But I think he probably should be all right, Zach Merritt. I think if he slapped him with an open fist, it wouldn't have been, no one would have minded. And if perhaps if he did the same action, but Silvani didn't get injured, no one would care either. I think it was Kane Corns today was saying that that happens probably 10 times a game, and no one really cares about it. So I think it'll be tough, a bit stiff if he misses out, but obviously wishing a speedy recovery to Silvani.
Yeah, absolutely. The final game we can really analyze of this week, the Lions and the Crows. And I didn't think the Crows were too bad in the third quarter, but in the fourth, the fans at the Gabba just, encouraged the Lions all the way until the end, and a handy 37-point victory for them.
Yeah, I think the Crows were horrible in the first half and then horrible in the last quarter again. The third quarter was a bit of a shining light with Taylor Walker standing up for them. But yeah, it's probably not very good losing again. But they probably should. I think the Lions should have won by a lot more than they ended up doing. They did not kick accurately at all. They kicked 10 goals, 23. And I know perhaps their two best players, Neil and McCluggage, combined for one goal 11.
Yeah.
Neil kicking 0 goals 6 and McCluggage 1 goal 5. Could have been already 2 big days for both of them, but could have turned into massive ones if they had have kicked straight.
Injury report from this game, we had the young Will Hamill. He had a concussion in the first quarter for the Crows, and Dane Zorko, one of their best players, his Achilles had to be iced up after a little flare in the second quarter.
That's probably a good thing for Dane Zorko, I think, because he missed last week he got injured last week with the same Achilles injury. And then they tried to strap him up this week and get him back out there. I thought maybe with a bit of a niggling injury, they should have just put him on ice earlier. But he didn't end up returning to the ground. And I think hopefully he can rest that up and be good for the top of the table clash next week of Port Adelaide and Brisbane.
The next game, Melbourne-Geelong, currently going on the third quarter. Geelong's midfield really dominating, and they're up by 11 points. 33-22. I think they'll keep the lead, and I'm hoping so because I tipped them.
I think Geelong will keep the lead as well. Dangerfield's been massive in the first half, so I think they can win there. They can pull the win.
And I think the hardest game to tip this week, Hawthorn North Melbourne. I'm still not 100% sure who to go with. I've been thinking about North, but I'm going to keep it with Hawthorn.
I'm going to go with Hawthorn as well. I think they've got a better list than North Melbourne. I think they've got better players around the ground. Mitchell, O'Meara, look for them to be big. Hopefully Patton can hit the scoreboard. I've got 2 things for you, Dylan. The Tigers swung the axe this week. They dropped Rioli, Pickett, Soldo and Graham, and one other one as well, I think. I can't think of who that was. Do you reckon they deserve to be dropped, or do you think they perhaps should have kept a few of them in?
Well, I think it's just a reflection on the last 2 weeks, the draw with the Pies and then the loss last week, and then they lost this week. So it's a bit of an interesting situation for them at the moment. Not everyone's performing. Dusty's not his full self. Cochin's not his full self either on the field. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I thought Pickett, he had a bit of a slow start, but he's only played 3-4 games, so I think he should have been given another chance. Soldo's a handy ruckman. Graham's good around the ground. And who was the other one you said? Sorry?
Dan Rioli.
Yeah, Rioli, handy forward pocket. He's been a bit inconsistent though, so I think, it's a bit of a statement if you're dropped. So maybe they'll work harder, come back in the team, hopefully pick him up once again.
Do you think they can play Soldo and Nankervis together, or do you think they should just pick one of them?
It's a bit like the Marshall and Ryder situation, I think. I think one could go forward and then maybe switch in between the ruck. But while we're on that, I'll ask you a quick question. What did you think about Adelaide axing Matty Crouch?
That's what I was going to ask you that as well. But I think that's wrong. I think Matt Crouch is a superstar of the game. He was an All-Australian just a few years ago. He's one of their best and fairest. He's still young, and I think I'd like him at the Blues. I'd like him at most teams. But if he's not getting a game at Adelaide, come to Carlton.
There's many others they could have dropped before him, I think. But, yeah.
There is one other thing, Adelaide players coming to Carlton. Did you see Bryce Gibbs tweeted out, "Go Baggers," after the Carlton win?
I did not see that.
I think a lot of the 7 AFL members weren't very happy with it. They thought perhaps that was a bit wrong for a player to playing for another team to write that. But I think he's not getting a game anyway, so if he wants to do that, what are they going to do? Drop him?
Yeah, he's definitely underperformed at Adelaide compared to the Blues. But
My last question that I have for you, Dylan. I was meant to ask you this last week, but it's perhaps even more relevant this week. Would you prefer Matthew Rowell or Sam Walsh on your team?
uh, I, oh, geez, they're both young guns with heaps of potential. Uh, at the moment, I would take Matty Rowell.
Mm.
I know that hurts you.
I'm a big Walsh fan, and he gets a lot of the ball and he uses it well. But I think at this stage, maybe you have to pick Real as well because his last few weeks have been ridiculous. And I think for an 18-year-old to come out and just be best on ground multiple weeks in a row is pretty much unheard of. And yeah, it's very good for him. I saw a Bad Boys meme, the scene where they're like, how old are you? To the
Yeah,
boys.
yeah. I saw this one.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. And they were like, how old are you? Matt Rao was like, I'm 18. And then they were like, you better be at least 30. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Although in saying that, I think Walshy could definitely dominate if he was given a chance at Gold Coast as well. So it's a bit of 50-50. They're both absolute stars.
Yeah, still respect to Walsh. He's still going to be an absolute
Yeah.
superstar of the game. Could still be a top 10, top 5 player in the league. And yeah, maybe a Brownlow medalist one day. But I think both of them are going to be absolute guns. And maybe Raul has a tiny bit more upside though.
So that pretty much does it for this week. The next episode we'll have week 4's tips. It's a difficult week to tip. I don't know if you've looked ahead, Zave. The Thursday night clash especially. But yeah, we'll get into that. Anything else to say?
We'll have the NBA ones out soon for
Yes.
all the NBA fans.
Yep, absolutely. We'll have NBA out. We'll have AFL out. It's good to alternate between them. We both enjoy both the sports, obviously. But until next time, I hope you enjoy. And if you watch until this point, let us know if you would rather mark of the year or goal of the year and explain why.
And let us know, Raul or Walsh.
Raul or Walsh. There you go. A couple of questions for you too. But until next time, hope you enjoy.
See ya.